Good afternoon, Cubs fans. It is Wrigleyville South. I am Chad. Welcome aboard. Let's get right into it. It is time to do our 2022 Cubs opening day preview. I say that because I kind of feel like what we see today, this lineup that we're seeing against the Brewers, it's against the Brewers. It's a week before, 6 days before opening day. And this is, I think, what the lineup is going to look like. Very similar to what we are seeing on the field today. And let me cut the audio on this little monitor that I have over here. So let me pull the lineup up here real quick, because this is you've got I'm sorry, not the Brewers game, the D-backs game. It's Hendricks against Madison Bumgarner, and the lineup is Nico Hoerner, Seiya Suzuki, Frank Schwindel, Jason Heyward, Patrick Wisdom, Ian Happ, Yan Gomes, Ildemaro Vargas, and then the Triantos kid playing down at the bottom of the order at DH is something I don't expect us to be seeing, but I think we could see him maybe down the road. I don't even know if we'd see James Triantos this year in a Cubs uniform, but I kind of like the way that this lineup sets up for, especially that part near the top of the order. Don't know about Heyward in the 4-hole, but let's just get into it because I want to break down what I see from what Roster Resource has proposed and what I see some flaws with in that. Let's go straight to Roster Resource here. So just kind of getting into what their lineup looks like. I don't have a ton of problems with it. I do think there's some things that'll be shuffled around. And if you look at the way that David Ross has put the lineup together over the course of the season or the spring training thus far, he tends to like putting Nick Madrigal or Nico Hoerner in that one spot, followed by Seiya Suzuki. And I think it would be really interesting to see in a legitimate, regular season game with I saw that Mozart. We're not going to get into that right now. And the Dodgers just continuing to go get like all the biggest free agents or trading for these big name players all the time. They never stop having like the most ridiculous payroll, them and the Yankees every year. But we're going to hold off on that because right now we're talking about this Cubs lineup. But yes, I did see that they traded Kimbrel. Did they even get him for? They didn't get him for a whole year. They got him for 3 months, or if that. I don't even think. And they got the worst Craig Kimbrel that we've seen since probably the 2019 when he came over with the Cubs. He has a tendency of doing that. But anyway, let's get into it. So I think what we would typically see is something maybe like this. I don't mind Rafael Ortega, especially this is what Roster Resource has as projected via Fangraphs. By the way, support the folks at Fangraphs. They do great work, and they're always asking for donations. So you can go to fangraphs.com and click this link to donate to them. I do want to give, if I'm going to use their Roster Resource because it's a really good resource, I'm going to go ahead and give them their shout out and ask people to go and support them. And we will continue to use this as a good jumping off point. I don't agree with everything they have here, but I think it's a good, like I said, a good jumping off point so that we can see kind of where to pivot from. So this is projected against a right-hander. So obviously you're going to lean a little more left-hand heavy with your bats against a righty. Rafael Ortega, Frank Schwindel, Wilson Contreras, Ian Happ, Seiya Suzuki. All I'm saying is what I have seen so far with what Rossi has done with this lineup with the Cubs is Suzuki has typically been in the 2-hole, not in the 5-hole. And I actually think that works well for him. He's pretty patient and he can drive the ball all over the place. And I think getting him in a position where he can feel a little more comfortable setting the table and maybe driving in if Madrigal or Hoerner or whoever, Ortega in this case, gets on ahead of him, just trying to drive that run home or move that runner over. It takes a lot of the pressure off. Putting someone in the 2-hole is a great way to kind of get their feet wet. I really like what I've seen out of Hoerner in the leadoff spot. So I'm kind of looking forward to. I'm not Hoerner, Madrigal in the leadoff spot. So I'm really liking what I'm seeing there. But so here we go. Ortega, I don't know why they have him listed as DH. I would expect that we would see Ortega play in center field if he's in the starting lineup. I don't know. I'd have to look at the metrics defensively between him and Jason Heyward, but there seems to be this deference to Jason Hayward's defense as though it translates directly from him going to right field, from right field into center field. I don't see that happening. His numbers are actually subpar as a center fielder, against the major league average. So I think you only put him there if you are definitely going to have his bat in the lineup. And I wouldn't put Ortega in the lineup at that point, unless you just, you're going up against a righty and you really want to go left-hand heavy. But if that's the case, then you should have VR in instead of Patrick Wisdom. I mean, there's some other things, or at least maybe have Wisdom in the DH spot and have VR play in, or do VR in the DH spot. But I would move Hoerner or Madrigal up, and I like what Rossi has done, having Madrigal leading off and then Hoerner as that second leadoff with in the 9 hole. Frank Schwindel, I like him in the. I mean, this is your locks. Frank Schwindel at first, Willson Contreras until they trade him at catcher. Those are pretty much guaranteed. Suzuki in right, Happ in center. In left. Heyward in center, either Heyward or Ortega in center is what I see happening, and then Hoerner and Madrigal up the middle. I like that, and then Wisdom at third. That's going to be pretty much your standard fare. I'm really interested to see what Clint Frazier can do. There are a lot of people who are talking about this is a potential breakout year for him and everything. I'll believe it when I see it, but I've liked what I've seen so far in the spring. He's been driving the ball very well, playing very well, having some really good at bats. So we'll see. Former first rounder from the Indians, the number 5 overall pick. It'd be really cool if he could live up to that. That would be amazing. And then if Patrick Wisdom, also, look at this. Look at these first rounders that you have in this lineup now. Ian Happ, number 9 overall. Heyward was number 14 overall. Lived up to that very early on in his Braves career and then really fell off even harder when he came over to the Cubs as a free agent after that 1 year with the Cardinals. Wisdom, he was like a compensatory pick, 52nd overall, still in the first round, but it was late, one of those sandwich picks from a qualifying offer. Nico Hoerner, number 24 overall, and then Nick Madrigal, number 4 overall. Then you go down here, Clint Frazier's number 5 overall, and Marcus Stroman, number 22 overall. So a lot of these guys are either guys the Cubs drafted directly, like Happ and Nico Hoerner, but then you have a bunch of these other guys who they either fell off, weren't producing at that level, and the Cubs got them at bargain prices. Like Patrick Wisdom was like just thrown on the scrap heap, and the Cubs picked him up, and he just mashed last year. And so anyway, we'll see. The Hermosillo is, I think, just holding a place until Brennan Davis comes up, because I think when there's ultimately going to be a time where Brennan Davis gets called up, and I doubt he ever goes back down again, except maybe like if there's an injury and he has to go rehab. But he's going to be similar to Chris Bryant, where when he comes up, he's taken Michael Hermosillo's spot unless someone else gets hurt or something like that. He's taken that other outfield spot and pushing Hermosillo to the side, and then we will have the Brennan Davis era begin, and he will be on the major league roster from that point forward, if I had to guess. Yan Gomes is always going to be your backup catcher until they trade Willson Contreras. I'm expecting it at this point because they have not done anything on an extension for Contreras, and this just seems to be the way that they're going. The MO is they're just letting these position players walk, or in this case this year, if things don't go well starting off, I could see the Cubs very easily packaging Willson Contreras and some other pieces at the deadline to move on and scoop up some more prospects and keep building that farm system, because I think for all of what I love of what Theo Epstein did with Jed Hoyer's help, for all of the getting the monkey off of our backs, I love what they did to rapidly bring the organization from what was a push to be competitive for a long stretch in the early 2000s that really just decimated the farm system. Taking that and like doing as rapid of a regurgitation of all the garbage that had been built up in the system, dead money and very weak money, getting rid of that and bringing in some fresh blood. They kind of had to go for it all in 2016 because the stars were aligning, and they did a little bit more as they went into 17 and 18 and even into 2019 with the Kimbrel signing and some other things. Recognizing that, okay, we can keep trying to push this stone up the hill and it may roll back down on top of us, or we can just go ahead and let this core of what made 2016 magical start to either walk or at least make some trades and get some prospects out of these guys before they go free agency. I see that kind of coming to completion, and I like the direction that Jed Hoyer is taking the organization, because I see more of a focus on building that farm system and then continuing to cultivate and water that garden so that it keeps producing high level prospects that don't necessarily have to be, Kyle Schwarber, Chris Bryant level guys, but guys who can be contributors on a routine, regular basis, and where you don't have to go all the time. And especially with arms, where you're not constantly having to go to the free agent market and overpay for these pitchers that, even in the case of Jake Arrieta, 2014, he was great. 2015, he was even better. First half of 2016, amazing. Then the second half of 2016, he was still really good, but he had started to drop off. And then 2017 kind of continued that. And by the time 2018 rolled around, you were kind of glad that he was gone, because the Phillies had to eat that money. They gave him, $25 million over 3 consecutive years, a big $75 million contract that, he was betting on himself a little bit, but it ended up backfiring, and he took that very cheap deal to come over to the Cubs again last year. But that's the sort of thing when you're gambling on these arms and giving all this money to these arms, it doesn't take much, either a dip in velocity or an injury or anything like that, and you're just burning through money. And position players tend to stay healthier. They tend to not fall off as quickly as pitchers. So I think shifting the organizational focus from loading up on all these college bats that you can immediately plug into the lineup after a year or two in the minors, and then going and spending a bunch of money or making a big trade for an arm or 2 or 3 or 4, is moving that to, like, now we're going to develop our own arms, and maybe you'll supplement here and there, I think is a much better approach. So let's go to those arms. Before we do that, so you've also got Alfonso Rivas, who could play first base or corner outfield spot. Jonathan Villar, who could play pretty much anywhere. I think anywhere but catcher, probably. And who knows? He may even be able to play a little bit of catcher in a pinch. Clint Frazier, we already talked about, and Michael Hermosillo as well. It's a very right-handed heavy lineup and string of defensive position players. You got, let's see, 3 lefties and 2 switch hitters, and everybody else is right-handed. Now, the pitching staff, it's a little bit different. Whereas this has been, over the last several years, a Cubs organization that has had a very right-hand heavy starting rotation, and then just kind of mixing and matching in the bullpen in the later innings. I actually like the way that they have constructed things now, where You've got Stroman and Hendricks at the top of the rotation. Then Smiley coming in as that third pitcher with where's Wade Miley on here? Why don't they have? I mean, y'all just totally left Wade Miley off this thing. So okay, he's in the injured. He's. I think he's going to be fine. Well, we'll see. Anyway, so Wade Miley, Alec Mills, Drew Smiley, Justin Steele, Keegan Thompson. So you've got one righty in those guys who are contending for those last couple of spots, or two actually. Alec Mills, and Keegan Thompson. And Keegan Thompson could end up in this long relief spot that they have him in here, but he also could. I could definitely see him taking one of those starting spots. So Stroman, Hendricks, and then Wade Miley, Alec Mills, and then either Drew Smiley, Justin Steele, or Keegan Thompson. And then, of course, you have some guys you could bring up. You have the potential of Braylon Marquez if he really, really sets the world on fire first half of the season in the minors. You could also have Albert Alzolay come back. And if Albert Alzolay comes back and has figured out a couple of things to deal with lefties and can actually be a balanced starting pitcher, he might actually be able to stick in the rotation. If not, then he could just be one of your right-hand late inning bullpen arms. And then we go to the bullpen, and your closers are going to be Rowan Wick and David Robertson. Maybe Michael Gibbons mixed in a little bit there. Those are going to be your late inning, get it to the ninth and finish it off guys. It really sucks that Cody Heyer, to your point, Mozart, about the Kimbrel trade, the Cubs got Cody Heyer and Nick Madrigal out of that deal, and then they turned around and gave up. Now they got AJ Pollock for Kimbrel, but still, it's not. I don't know. They gave up a lot to basically get an aging AJ Pollock when it's all said and done. So let's go back to because Cody Heyer would be a really helpful arm at the back of that bullpen, but he's not going to be pitching anytime soon. Tommy John surgery a few weeks ago, so he's going to be out for a while. Chris Martin, a little older, just like David Robertson, a little older, but big dude, 6'8", and I like the fact that the Cubs have a lot of different arm slots and a lot of different statures and styles of pitching in their bullpen. It presents a lot of different matchup opportunities. Daniel Norris, who he could also contend for a starting spot potentially, but I think it's best for him to just settle in the bullpen, prove himself there, and then he might be able to get a spot start here or there, and then it's going to be a matter of figuring out if it's worth taking that gamble and working him into the rotation on a regular basis. But he's had, he's started before, and he's shown his pedigree there. But we'll see. Scott Effross and Manny Rodriguez. Manny Rodriguez, look, he could elevate himself back to that closer spot. He's really got to work on his control. He's got to do a better job of consistently throwing strikes. But the dude is a flamethrower, and he could really be a guy to watch at the back end of that bullpen, because he could actually come from where Fangraphs has him projected as a middle reliever right up into this closer spot. And then you got Jesse Chavez, another guy. I mean, he's the oldest guy on this roster, and he's there, but he's still effective at pushing 39 years old. So I love it. And then Keegan Thompson, obviously, he's going to be a candidate to be in the starting rotation, at least at some point during the season. And then the guys who we have on the injured list, you got Andrelton Simmons and David Bodie. Bodie's going to be out for a while, coming off of that shoulder surgery. And then Simmons having a little shoulder issue himself, more of a defensive guy and getting up there in years. But he's just got a little shoulder soreness. So he's going to be back much, much sooner than David Bodie. And then, of course, you see Adbert Alzolay and Wade Miley. Alzolay is going to be out probably until June, maybe July. And Miley, I'm not sure. I'm expecting him to be ready to go. Maybe not opening week, but he should be able to fill in his second spot in the rotation. second round through the rotation. But that may be okay because early on they're already talking about having some, I don't know, some consolation, so or not consolation, some allowances for some of these major league clubs to deal with the fact that we've had this rapid ramp up with the lockout. So you don't want to push teams with roster restrictions into running arms out there, getting people hurt, causing all these ripple effects. So there's still some negotiation going on right now about how the major league season is going to look as we start off. But let's go back to the starting lineup because I'm going to kind of break down where I think this thing actually ends up. I think your opening day starting lineup is going to be Nick Madrigal at second in the leadoff spot. Then it's going to be Seiya Suzuki in right field in the number 2 hole. Then I actually see Frank Schwindel in the 3 spot at first base. Wilson Contreras cleaning up at catcher. Then you probably are going to have Ian Happ as your left fielder in the 5 spot, followed by probably Wisdom. Now, I actually think because they're going to be going up against Corbin Burnes, I could see sitting Wisdom just because I don't think it's a great matchup for him. It's just he strikes out too much, and it's just a strikeout waiting to happen with Burnes the way he pitches. So I could actually see Hayward, Ortega maybe both being in the lineup and getting Wisdom, or maybe Jonathan VR in this spot. But Nico Hoerner, I think, is going to be playing shortstop and batting in this 9 hole. And then I think you could have either Wisdom, Ortega, somebody like that, maybe even Hayward. I would probably put Hayward in the field though. So have Hayward play center and bat there in the 7 or 8 hole, and have VR probably here playing third base. I would, as much as it sucks, I would bench Wisdom in that opening matchup. I just don't like the matchup for him. But Rossi may just be willing to take that one on the chin just to give the confidence to his guy at third base in Wisdom and just let it ride. But anyway, that's the way I see it. That's my preview. I don't know how this season's going to go, honestly. I think there's some upside with the rotation additions that they've made with Stroman and Miley, and then adding Drew Smiley to that mix and adding some of the other arms. There's some interesting pieces that these guys have performed in the past. And look, not for nothing, this lineup actually can put some numbers up, I think. So if you can just get 6 innings and then let that bullpen take over, because it's going to be a solid, last 3 or 4 innings, day in, day out. Nothing dominant there, but there's a lot of really solid arms that I think are very, under the radar, underrated. Realistically, though, I think this is probably, we're a year away from this Cubs franchise being back in the discussion as like a legitimate contender for not just sneaking into the playoffs, but actually belonging in the playoffs and making a run. I think that's probably next year. Add another arm or two to the rotation, pick up another bat, and then you need a closer. You either need to produce one from within the organization, or you got to go get one. So, but Mozart, since you're here, I'm just going to go through, because I think it was you way back when we were talking about all the different homegrown versus the going after getting guys and everything. And yes, while you're correct that the Dodgers, because I think it was you. Maybe I'm wrong. If I'm wrong, correct me. But I'm going to put this back up on the screen here because since I have the time, I'm waiting to see if the Cubs can scrape a run across. They're down 1-0 in this Brewers game, and they were getting smoked in the Arizona game. So I hope that's not necessarily a preview. Hendricks has not looked great in his couple of outings thus far. They're down 5-0 in the 4th in that game, and Hendricks gave up all 5 of those runs including 4 home runs. Now, the fact that it was 4 home runs, it's Hendy. He's probably just working on his stuff. But I would have hoped that at this point, that tune-up for his first start of the season, I would have hoped that he would have been in a little better shape for that, because I think this is his last start before the regular season starts. But I'm pulling this up because I want to go to let's go to the Dodgers. I want to show you something. All right, so let's real quick. No, we can't do it here because I'm gonna have to do it from memory because I don't have unless I can go to the 2020 or 2016. So there's a little arrow here, but you can't click on it. Nice, thanks for tantalizing me. All right, so we're gonna go to the Dodgers. So I just want to show this homegrown nonsense. Look at this. These are the original teams of the Dodgers starting lineup. You have Will Smith, Cody Bellinger, and Gavin Lux. Everybody else is from another team, from another franchise. All right, and you go to their rotation. Okay, so now the rotation looks good now, but if you go back and look last year, Max Scherzer in that rotation. These weren't the guys in the starting rotation. Okay, now you had Walker Buehler, Clayton Kershaw, and shout out to the Dodgers for putting that together. That, no doubt, amazing. They have a way of getting and finding that talent, but their whole lineup is guys they didn't draft, damn near. Whereas when you go to the Cubs in that 2016 season on that roster, so let's go to now. I'm not going to say that they were necessarily all homegrown or anything like that, and I'll give the same sort of leniency to this Max Muncy pickup because he was a free agent. He was another guy like Patrick Wisdom on the scrap heap. Nobody wanted him, and the Dodgers identified something that they thought could work, and he has been a monster ever since. So I'll give him their props for this because although he's not quote unquote homegrown, he is a guy who they identified that no one else wanted. Okay. So yes, that's, so I'm glad you said it. Cause yes, that I agree. Justin Turner too. So both of those guys were free agents. And that's why I was saying, so like, I go back to like Jake Arrieta. The Cubs got Jake Arrieta and Pedro Strop. And they were like, Jake Arrieta was terrible with the Orioles. And Pedro Strop was okay, but he wasn't as good as he was as a Cub. His Cubs career was outstanding, under a 3 ERA for like 6 straight seasons, out of the bullpen, tons of strikeouts, just really, really, really effective and dependable guy out of the bullpen. And Jake Arrieta had a run once he came over to the Cubs and they got his delivery right. They kind of undid some of the stuff that, or went back to where he's more comfortable. And undid some of the damage that Baltimore had done to him. And then Kyle Hendricks and Carl Edwards were both guys that they got in a trade with the Rangers where they traded away Ryan Dempster for a couple of prospects. So in that sense, like, these guys aren't homegrown in the sense that they were drafted by the Cubs, but they're similar to that, Max Muncy, Justin Turner ilk, where they were brought over when they were undervalued by the franchise that had them before. That's, you can't say the same for Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, Trey Turner. I mean, Jesus, this is these guys are monsters. These are 3 of the best hitters in baseball, and the Dodgers just went out and bought them, either by trading for them or by outright buying them, like Freddie Freeman. Okay, that's what I'm talking about. And I'm not saying you can't do some of that. You have to. Like, it's Major League Baseball. Free agency exists to expect teams to be. But I dismiss this nonsense that somehow that their team is just like all this, homegrown talent and everything. It's not true. So going back to the Cubs, so the Cubs lineup that won the World Series will go from start to finish. All right, so Dexter Fowler was acquired via trade with, I think, the Astros, or he may have been a free. I think they traded for him with the Astros. Then, man, I'm gonna have a hard time remembering in exact order. But Chris Bryant was drafted by the Cubs. Wilson Contreras drafted by the Cubs. Javier Baez drafted by the Cubs. Addison Russell was drafted by the A's, but he was traded for. The Cubs got him in a trade with the A's. I can't remember who they sent over to the A's to acquire Addison Russell. Crap, I hate myself for not. Was it Samardzija? I don't remember. I think it was maybe been Samardzija. But anyway, he was a prospect they traded for. So once he became once he was on the major league roster, he did that coming through the Cubs minor league system after being in the A's minor league system. Jason Hayward was a free agent acquisition. Let's see. So you had Almora was drafted by the Cubs. Contreras, Baez, Bryant, Anthony Rizzo was traded for. Okay, yeah. I mean, I guess it makes them unique. They draft well, they get good guys, and yes, they can make these trades. But my point is that more so than any other teams, the Yankees and the Dodgers outspend everybody else still. So their payroll is astronomical. And if you go back, like you can just go back and look at the numbers. The numbers are there. I could pull them up if you want me to. My point is they just outspend everybody else. So yeah, I mean you can the Cubs make trades like that too. They trade for young prospects and those guys blossom, or they draft guys and then they trade those guys and get free agent. The Cubs drafted Gleyber Torres and they traded him to get freaking Aroldis Chapman in that deal at the end of the year. So the Cubs can do that too. Every team can draft guys and then trade them away when they're ripe for the picking and they're in the top of their prospect list at the trade deadline. My point is that the Dodgers and the Yankees also go out and just offer like $30 million a year to like three guys damn near every offseason. and they keep paying up to keep their guys on their roster because they live in the two largest media markets by far. So I always just think it's funny that they do all that and they still, between the two of them, have 2 World Series championships to show for the last 20 years worth of doing this shit. I just think it's funny because as someone who had to suffer through a very poorly run organization for his entire childhood and young adulthood, I finally got to see the Cubs win a World Series. And they did it without, outspending everybody in baseball for like 17 straight seasons. So that's all I was saying. I'm not denying that the Dodgers don't draft well, or that I'm not denying that they do draft well, or that the Yankees, draft well. I'm just saying it really helps if you can outspend the shit out of everybody. That's all. But anyway, I appreciate the banter, and I had to do it. I had to go in a little bit. So anyway, it's 3-0 now. The Cubs are losing to the Brewers in this spring training game. Sampson's pitching now. So now that Keegan Thompson is out of this game, I'm not really interested so much anymore in the outcome of how he was pitching or anything like that. He did well while he was in there. Disappointed that the offense hasn't put up a little bit more than they have. They had an opportunity with second and third earlier in the game and couldn't cash in. Struck out. And then I think hit a pop up. But anyway, we are 6 days away from opening day. I can't wait. And because that game, the Cubs opening day game is a 1:20 start Central Time, I am not going to, unfortunately, be able to live stream that while the game is going on and do my reaction. I Oh, good. See, I don't count that World Series championship either because that was a stupid season. That one and the Lakers. It was kind of funny how Los Angeles got both of those, right? So you got the Lakers and the Dodgers both winning championships in a year where like nobody could go to games and it was all stupid and weird and they just basically crammed the whole season into what was it 60 games I think. Yeah, I don't count that one either. But I generally try not to say that because I don't want to get into arguments with people. But it's not the same. It just ain't the same as having to, like you said, having to win consistently over the course of a 162 game season, go through all the injuries and all the ups and downs, slumps and everything else. When it's a 60 game season, and that's what you saw too with the Lakers in the NBA playoffs. That was an older team that had some injury issues. LeBron's getting old and everything. And they were able to benefit from the fact that they just shut the season down for like 6 months. And then as soon as the season was shut down, everybody just kind of went into, some sort of weird different mode. And when everybody came out of that, I think LeBron and the Lakers just kind of saw it as, oh, I only got to go hard for like, 6 weeks. And then we can take home a trophy. All right, let's go. And I really think it benefited them. And I think the same thing could be said for the Dodgers. You certainly saw that with Kershaw. He pitched better in that postseason than he had in any postseason in a long time. Mostly, I think, because he didn't have to rack up 200 innings before. But looks like they're finally going to get out of this inning, or maybe not. Nope. Okay, it's 5-0. All right, so this is ugly. It's spring training though, so we don't really care. But I hope you guys have enjoyed this preview, and I hope you've enjoyed, as Cubs fans, me dogging on the Dodgers a little bit too, because screw everybody who's not the Cubs. No, I'm just joking. But seriously, I'm not joking. Go Cubs, go! Let's go. By the way, can't wait until opening day because I'm going to be flying this bad boy. That is my very own. It's old, it's torn, it's tattered, it's worn, but it is my W flag from 2016. We went to the 4-game series with the Giants back in September of 2019. 2016. So anyway, I bought that while I was out there, and it is my good luck W flag because that's the W flag that won the World Series, people. So don't hate, appreciate. And with that, I say farewell and join us again next time. We'll be here damn near every day. So if you haven't already, subscribe now and then hit the notification bell so that you get notified whenever I go live again. And go Cubs, go. Let's get it. Peace, y'all. Y'all have a good one.